Welcome, HJ. I'm turning it over to you.
All right, very good. So you guys saw the opening slide, but yeah, I would really like to thank Charlie and Becca and the empowering team for this opportunity to take a new look, at what our role is in energy efficiency, the importance of energy efficiency, and the challenge that I have for us is to um, challenge the existing paradigm. Really think about what that means, right? Charlie gave a pretty good introduction for me. So people often ask, so I am not an engineer, right? A lot of the people in our industry are engineers, and people in roles similar to mine are engineers. I've got a double major in communications and organizational leadership, 4 years in the Navy. I've served on many different associations, including I had a stint on the board of directors for the Hydraulic Institute. I was on the Midwest Energy Research Consortium and the Water Council, NEMA, many different organizations that were all focused in different ways on energy efficiency and sustainability and the water energy nexus. So definitely a passion of mine, a place I've spent a lot of time in my career. And with that, just to set the table for our discussion, I'd like to start with a few definitions to make sure everybody is on the same page. First, let's take a look at the word paradigm. A paradigm is a mental framework that's so ingrained in our being that it shapes the way we think about things and the way we act, the things that we do. Our everyday actions are based on paradigms that shape our lives. As an example, at one time, our paradigm was that the Earth was at the center of the universe. Our sun traveled around us daily. Everything, all thoughts, beliefs, actions were based on that reality. People actually believed at one time in a sun god who made daily trips across the sky and that the earth was flat. But then that changed pretty significantly. In 1515, Copernicus hypothesized that our spherical planet, like the other planets, orbited the sun, and that every 24 hours we rotated on an axis, causing the night and the day. This new way of thinking contradicted a 1,000-year-old Earth is the center of the universe Aristotelian theory, and it changed everything. Just imagine the paradigm shift that took place when we went from thinking that we're the center of the Earth universe to accepting the fact that we are not. This shaped the way that we lived our lives. Secondly, I'd like to define what it means to inherit something. To inherit something means that you received it, it's yours. You can do with it what you want. You have the title. Pretty simply, you own it. And next, I'd like to define what it means to borrow something. To borrow means that you received with the implied intentions to return it. It actually means that the object is not yours. It belongs to someone else who most likely expects to get it back in the same or better condition than when you borrowed it from them or when they lent it to you. You do not own it. So I'd like you to take some time and think for a minute about some time that maybe you lent something to somebody, something important. Did you get it back in the same condition that it was when you lent it? Have you ever lent something and gotten it back in a worse condition? Maybe something like a utensil up in the left-hand corner, right? Before you could use it, you had to clean it or re-season it. Maybe it was something that was special, a favorite book or a piece of clothing. Maybe it came back to you and it was completely unusable, either broken or missing pieces. Maybe it was something that was really, really valuable to you, right? Something that couldn't be replaced without considerable expense. Needless to say, I'd like to ask the question, when you got it back, how did it make you feel? Were you upset, disappointed, maybe even a little bit angry? So I'd like to take you on a little journey with me and share a story with you. In 1994, 30 years ago today, my current fiance, my fiance at the time, fiance for almost 30 years, Trish, and I went on our first official away from home date. We went to a Packer game. And, it was a birthday gift for me. It was our first, night at a hotel, we'll say. And we wanted to take in the whole thing. So we got to Green Bay the day beforehand. We get up early in the morning. It was super cold. We headed out first thing in the morning. and we went to tailgate like we do in Green Bay at Lambeau, right? We grilled out for the day, had a few drinks, had a really, really great time, maybe even a few too many drinks, but at the end of the day, hey, we were at Lambeau. We got to our seats. They were nosebleeds, right? Packer seats are not cheap. Every game has been sold out for years and years and years. But we got to our seats and we're there at the frozen tundra, pretty excited about it. And the cool thing was that we had borrowed Trish's dad's binoculars for the game. So even though we had seats that were way up there, we are going to get a great view of the game. It turned out to be a really great day. The Packers crushed our division rivals, the Bears, 40-3. Couldn't have been better. We celebrated with the fans throughout the day. And even on the way home, we left the stadium. We were going out to the Titletown drinking experience that night, I would say, to celebrate with fans about the win. And at some point along the way, we had realized that we had forgot the binoculars. We left them in the seats in the stadium, and we had lost them. Well, that was all right. We decided we were going to get a really, really good pair of binoculars and replace them. So we did. We went and we bought a super expensive pair, went and told her dad, and I'll never forget the awful look on his face when he looked at us and he said, "Thanks, but those were my dad's." And so when you think about that, right, we didn't know the value of those binoculars to him. Ultimately speaking, you don't know the value of something unless you can hear from the person specifically themselves what it really means. It was a learning experience that stayed with me. Still here 30 years later, I still think about that. So I'd ask, what would that mean if we applied this thinking to our planet, to Earth? What if we changed the paradigm completely? What if we changed the way of thinking that shapes our actions? What if we did not inherit the Earth from those before us? What if, in fact, we borrowed it from the future, from those yet to come? Our children and theirs, our grandkids, great-grandkids, etc. Think about what that would mean. What if the planet Earth, our planet, was not really ours, but instead belonged to somebody else? And what if we had to give it back to them with interest? So I'd like to ask if anybody has heard of the pale blue dot, right? I'll put this in perspective. Voyager 1 launched in 1977 with a planned mission to reach Saturn to send scientific images back to NASA. Voyager 1 achieved that objective and served well beyond it, making it all the way to the outskirts of our solar system. During Voyager's extended journey for nearly 10 years, astronomer Carl Sagan had the idea to turn her cameras around and look back at the Earth. And in 1990, it finally happened, capturing an image of our planet from nearly 4 billion miles away. The image itself actually has no scientific value, but it was Sagan who saw the intrinsic value in the image. He captured that value in his book, The Pale Blue Dot. And here I'm going to highlight, if I can here, specifically the dot. The dot is right here in this ray of the sun. Sagan wrote in his book, look at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. And I'll paraphrase, if that dot is all that we have ever been, the only world known to harbor life, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish that pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. So I'll ask the question, how are we doing? Let's take a quick look at what we do with that dot. And I'll pause here for you to take in some of these images. Ultimately speaking, I would suggest that we have real opportunities to maybe improve on the way that we're protecting that dot. Yet as a people, we continue to grow. By 2050, we expect to be over 10 billion inhabitants on Earth. And despite this growth, many countries around the world are focused on getting to net zero, which net zero means effectively cutting the carbon emissions to a small enough amount that can be absorbed and durably stored by nature. Does it feel a little bit overwhelming? We simply cannot remain on the same path. we have to figure out how to do more with less. So as individuals, you can imagine things that are pretty simple to do in our own lives, right? Some obvious things are reuse, recycle, use products that can be recovered, limit the use of items that are difficult to recover, such as styrofoam or things that are coated with PFAS chemicals. We can limit waste. We can turn off things when they're not in use. Examples might include lights, fans, air conditioners, TVs, and such. We can turn off the water when we brush our teeth, right? Simple things. We can limit excessive runoff when we're doing things like watering our lawn or washing our car. We can dispose of food stuff in the disposal, which is a natural waste stream, instead of throwing it in the garbage can where it might end up in a landfill. Wherever possible, we can use renewable energy sources, and we might even install smart devices that can control temperature, lighting, water flow in our homes that are set differently when we're away versus when we're at home or in the office. But some things might not be that obvious, right? Many of the things that are not obvious are more in our business and leisure lives, in the industrial space or in commercial buildings. Let's focus on reducing emissions as a part of our goal to make and take better steps for our future. So one of the most impactful greenhouse gases is carbon dioxide. I think most of you know, but carbon dioxide is the gas that comes from your car, gases that come from fossil fuel production into gasoline and others, and a harmful byproduct of heavy industry. There's three primary ways to reduce carbon dioxide. The first is decarbonization, which is using renewable energy instead of fossil fuels. The second is efficiency, which is using less energy for providing the same number of products and services. And the third is sufficiency, rethinking the way we produce and consume to both use and waste less. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to focus on the importance of efficiency in achieving the goal of getting to net zero. So efficiency, the way that we use energy, it's simply the largest single contributor to emissions reductions available to achieve net zero. Being more efficient with the energy we use will have a bigger impact than switching to renewable energies, a bigger impact than fuel switching, which is switching from carbon-intense fuels to low or zero carbon alternatives, a bigger effect than ramping up our use of nuclear power, and so on. In fact, doubling our rate of efficiency and energy intensity, the amount of energy used to produce a given level of output or activity, doubling our rate of efficiency over the next decade could save 95 exajoules of energy per year, helping us to avoid 5 gigatons of CO2 per year. So for reference, I thought I'd include two things. First, an exajoule is a joule times 10 to the 18th power, for those of you that are engineers out there, right? 10 to the 9th power is a billion. We're talking about a billion billions, right? Or a gigaton. It's the equivalent to the CO2 generated by 211 million gasoline-powered passenger vehicles. We're talking about a lot of CO2, right? This can have a tremendous effect on our ability to achieve net zero, in addition to many other additional measurable effects. The amount of energy that we could save, it's staggering. I'd like to share with you a short video to introduce something we call the energy efficiency movement.
What can one drop of water do? What about 2 or 3? The smallest of actions can accomplish much if done consistently and with purpose. Sometimes we think we're too small to do anything, to mean anything. What will happen if we continue down the same path, doing the same things we've always done? Ignoring the problem won't solve it. The energy efficiency movement brings together like-minded stakeholders working toward a more energy-efficient world. Through knowledge sharing, adoption of energy-efficient technologies, smarter investments, and better regulations and incentives, decarbonization can be achieved faster. enabling a brighter future for all. It takes just one step to change direction, to put us on a better path with a vision for the future. What can one person do? One company, two companies. Understanding the reality of a situation is the first step towards solving it. If you haven't joined us yet or require information, visit energyefficiencymovement.com.
So let's focus on electrical motors, which is the workhorse of our society. The International Energy Agency has estimated that 70% of the electricity consumed by global industry is used by electrical motor systems. That's 45% of the total electricity in the world today. In a recent study, they estimated that electrical motors will double by 2040 to over 600 million units. Urbanization and rising living standards will continue to increase the demand for energy. The global economy is expected to double over that same period. Critical processes can't stop. They must continue, but they need to be more energy efficient to reduce our CO2 emissions. With high efficiency motors and drive systems that are available today, we can cut electricity consumption by 10%, despite the increase in motor use. So the question is, who can drive energy efficiency performance? The answer is effectively that we all can. Regardless of the organization that you work for, there are opportunities to join the energy efficiency movement to contribute. Across the board, members can add value, whether they're from academia, the private sector, the public sector, government, or investment community. All of our actions can make a difference to drive a more efficient future. Even as individuals, we can manage our own activities and we can advocate for energy efficiency and for the movement. First of all, kudos to Charlie and the Empowering team for allowing me to present on this platform. And I would also say kudos to those of you that are willing in the audience to take action or to think about what it might mean to join the movement. Becoming a mover effectively is our term. It's not difficult. It's about commitment. There's 5 simple steps. First, make a commitment to improve energy efficiency in your organization, your work, or your daily activity. Second, be willing to share that commitment publicly via the Energy Efficiency Movement portal. Third, take action. Act on the items that you identify to become more efficient and report on your progress publicly and share your experience. Help us to activate the movement and advocate for additional movers. The business case is clear. Making a commitment to become more efficient both saves money and reduces our carbon footprint. It's true, we simply can do more with less with the technology we have available today. The energy efficiency movement identifies 10 key actions we can take right now. We do not have to wait for some big technological advancements. We have the technology today to make significant change. We believe we have the technology to save 4 gigatons of CO2 annually by 2030, an 11% reduction of the total carbon emissions, all while saving industry over $400 billion by not spending on energy that's not needed. Working to become more efficient pays off for organizations. It pays off for all. Why wait? There's several benefits to making a commitment and joining the movement. By joining the movement, your organization becomes a member of a global community of stakeholders who also have committed to positive change in their energy efficiency journey. Together, these organizations share commitments, solutions, and results, driving innovation toward a more efficient future. Our mission since its inception in 2021 has been consistent. We promote energy efficient solutions and technologies and focus on 3 things: saving energy, reducing costs, and reducing CO2 emissions. We do this through education and through scaling innovations and best practices based on a first fuel principle, where energy efficiency is the biggest opportunity to achieve our objectives. So where do we stand today? We actually, in 2023, we crossed almost 450 movers globally. We include companies like GEA, T-Mobile, Microsoft, Honeywell, Alfa Laval, Sulzer, Danfoss, and Flowserve. You may recognize, if you know the organization I work for, ABB, that several of those are our competitors. The movement's not isolated to ABB. Effectively, it's available for all, and we've had competitors who have agreed to join the movement. In average, we have about 20 companies that join the movement a month. This has really been a really, really high level introduction to what's possible and to what the movement is. To learn more, I encourage you to engage with the energy efficiency movement and consider whether or not your organization should become a mover. And as a minimum, I challenge you to check us out and see how you can engage in what it may mean to you. And in closing, I'd like to ask, do you remember that dot? If that's not ours, if that's something that we borrowed from the future generations, if we change the paradigm completely, and if that dot is all we have, then we must ask ourselves, what commitment can we make? I've included here a few references that I used in preparing the presentation outside of the energy efficiency movement. And again, I'd like to take a minute to share my contact information, and I encourage you to connect with me to learn more about the movement and more about what you can do, and maybe more about the impact of electric motors and drives. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. And I'd like to ask Charlie, do we have time for any questions?
We do have some time. Thank you so much, HJ. Y'all put your questions in the chat or the Q&A, or you can, send me a message, want to jump on. HJ, I'm inspired, right? I'd heard just a taste of your presentation when we talked, and you did a beautiful job. Absolutely makes you think differently, which is, I know, what you're wanting for people. And, I think that the movement, the energy efficiency movement, and being a part of that, and being an advocate and a person willing to share, my company's willing to share on energy efficiency, it's because it's so important. And we've heard today from so many different people. Actually, people are talking about it online in different areas. I do want to share a link to an article from Bluefield Research that was going around just as we were talking about water and energy together. So were they. I don't have a question coming up for you right now, but that means you did a great job. And y'all, please reach out to him, share this. We definitely have it on demand, but I also think we should look at just sharing this, HJ. It's so powerful. Thank you for your time. And like you said, get in touch with HJ. He's done a lot for our industry as a whole. Looking forward to seeing what you do next. I know for a fact in November at Epic, but then, depending on what you do, we'll be watching, because that is a very powerful message. So thank you, HJ.
I appreciate it so much, Charlie. I agree. When you think about the fact that if the earth is ours and we can do with it what we want, that's one thing, right? And then you think about, are we going to make it to 2050? But if you really change that paradigm and think about the fact that it's not ours, right? We effectively owe it to the future to do a better job than what we're doing right now, right? It maybe changes the way we think about things we can do in our own lives and what our organizations can do, right? We continue to add movers because of the fact that people want to make a difference, right? It's really a positive thing. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, HJ.